The woods stood silent. An unnatural stillness hung in the air. 7 friends, backpacks strapped tight, stood at the edge of the woods, ready for a weekend of camping and fun. Lisa, the bravest of the group, adjusted her flashlight, unable to shake the feeling that something was off. "You sure about this, Lisa?" Emily, always the cautious one, shivered as the shadows from the trees seemed to reach out, grasping at their ankles. "It's too quiet." "Don't be such a scaredy cat, Em," Mark chuckled, slinging an arm around his girlfriend, Jessica. "It's just the woods." The others, Chris, the jokester, David, the quiet observer, and Kevin, the tech geek, laughed along, their voices echoing strangely in the stillness. They were young, carefree, and oblivious to the darkness that awaited them. They ventured deeper, the silence growing heavier with every step. The air grew thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. Lisa couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes following their every move. She glanced back at her friends, their faces illuminated by the moon, their laughter now hushed whispers. As they walked, a faint sound reached their ears, a low, mournful moan, like the cry of a wounded animal. It seemed to slither through the trees, sending chills down their spines. "Did you hear that?" Jessica whispered, clutching Mark's arm tighter. David, always the level-headed one, strained his ears. Probably just the wind. But the wind didn't sound like a tortured soul. Lisa felt a shiver crawl up her spine. She couldn't place the feeling, but something was terribly wrong. The woods had fallen silent again, the only sound their own ragged breathing. Then, a flicker of light, faint and distant, caught Lisa's eye. It danced between the trees, beckoning them forward. Curiosity, a dangerous siren in the stillness, pulled them towards the mysterious light. "What is that?" Chris whispered, his usual cheerfulness gone. "Let's check it out," Mark said, ever the adventurous one. He didn't wait for a reply, already pushing through the undergrowth, drawn to the light like a moth to a flame. The trees thinned, revealing a clearing bathed in an eerie silver moonlight, and in the center stood a house. It loomed over them, dark and imposing, its windows like vacant eyes staring into their souls. The faint light they had seen emanated from a single window on the top floor. "Creepy," Emily breathed, her voice barely a whisper. The house was a grotesque caricature of a home, its paint peeled, revealing rotting wood beneath. The porch sagged precariously, guarded by a rusted swing set that creaked ominously in the night breeze. Shadows danced and twisted within, cast by the moon and the flickering light from the window. "Anyone home?" Chris called out, his voice echoing unsettlingly in the stillness. The only answer was the creak of the swing set and the rustling of leaves. "Let's get out of here," Jessica pleaded, her voice tight with fear. But Mark was already halfway up the porch steps, his curiosity outweighing his fear. One by one, the others followed, drawn in by a force they couldn't explain. The front door creaked open as if inviting them in. The stench hit them first, a musty, suffocating odor of decay and something sickly sweet like rotting flowers. Dust motes danced in the single beam of moonlight that pierced the gloom. Cobwebs, thick and heavy, hung from every corner. The air inside was heavy, oppressive, making it difficult to breathe. "Hello!" Lisa called out, her voice echoing in the vast emptiness. The only response was the echo of her own voice. The house was a labyrinth of shadows and dust. Furniture draped in white sheets loomed like ghosts, and portraits with eyes that seemed to follow their every move lined the walls. The air grew colder as they ventured deeper, a bone-chilling cold that seeped into their bones. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence. It was Jessica. They spun around, hearts pounding, only to find her gone. Mark, his face white with terror, raced up the creaking stairs, calling her name. "Jess, where are you?" His voice echoed back, unanswered. One by one they followed, their fear growing with each step. The house seemed to press in on them, the air thick with a palpable sense of dread. The house played tricks on their minds. Hallways stretched endlessly, rooms shifted and changed before their eyes. Each of them experienced their own personal horrors. Chris, laughing hysterically, vanished into a mirror, his reflection winking one last time. David, pale and trembling, was dragged screaming into a dusty closet by unseen hands. Kevin, frantically trying to get a signal on his phone, disappeared in a burst of static, his phone clattering to the floor. Emily, her eyes wide with terror, stumbled into a room filled with antique dolls, their painted faces twisted into grotesque smiles. Her screams were cut short, replaced by an eerie silence. Lisa and Mark, their courage failing, clung to each other, desperately searching for a way out. But the house had them trapped, its presence suffocating, its grip inescapable. It fed on their fear, growing stronger with each disappearance. "We have to get out of here," Lisa gasped, her voice raw with terror. She could feel the house watching them, toying with them, savoring their fear. They stumbled through the house, adrenaline pumping through their veins, their minds reeling from the horrors they had witnessed. The air grew colder, the darkness more oppressive. The house seemed to be closing in on them, its presence suffocating, its intentions clear. It wanted them, wanted to claim them like it had claimed their friends. Just when they thought all hope was lost, Lisa spotted it. A faint glimmer of light coming from beneath a heavy oak door at the end of a dust-filled corridor. They exchanged a desperate look, a silent agreement passing between them. It was their only chance. They charged towards the light, their hearts pounding in their chests. Mark slammed his shoulder against the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked, barred from the other side. Lisa could hear the heavy thudding of their pursuer, getting closer. Terror lent them strength. Mark threw his weight against the door again and again, each impact rattling his teeth. Finally, with a groan of tortured wood, the door burst open. They tumbled through, gasping for air, scrambling to their feet. They found themselves outside, the first rays of dawn slicing through the trees. The house loomed behind them, its dark silhouette stark against the emerging light. It stood silent, watching them, as if daring them to return. "We made it," Lisa breathed, her words shaky, her entire body trembling with exhaustion and terror. But her relief was short-lived. Mark was gone, vanished. She was alone. The woods were silent, the only sound the chirping of birds, a stark contrast to the horrors of the night. The rising sun painted the leaves in hues of gold and crimson, but it did little to chase away the terror that clung to Lisa like a shroud. She stumbled out of the woods, her clothes torn, her mind fractured. The horrors she had witnessed were seared into her memory, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the ordinary. The authorities never believed her story. The house, they said, had been abandoned for years. There was no evidence of her friends, no trace of the horrors she had witnessed. They dismissed it as a prank gone wrong, a figment of a teenager's overactive imagination. But Lisa knew the truth. She carried the scars, both visible and invisible, a constant reminder of that night. The house had taken something from her, something more than just her friends. It had taken her innocence, her belief in the safety and predictability of the world. She tried to move on, to bury the memories, but the house held her captive in its grip. The whispers followed her, the shadows haunted her dreams. The experience had changed her, marked her in ways she couldn't understand. Years later, an old woman sat by the fire, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, her eyes reflecting a lifetime of memories, some pleasant, others best forgotten. She clutched a worn photograph in her hand, the edges softened with time. 6 smiling faces stared back at her, frozen in time, their laughter echoing only in her memory. She had told the story countless times, each time the details a little fuzzier, the edges a little softer, as if time itself was trying to erase the horrors of that night. But the fear in their eyes, the palpable terror that never faded. "They say the house feeds on fear," she whispered, her voice raspy with age, her eyes fixed on the flickering flames. "It lures the unsuspecting, toys with their minds, then claims them, body and soul." She traced the outline of a face in the photograph, a single tear rolling down her cheek. "It took them from me," she murmured, her voice filled with a grief that time had dulled but never extinguished. The fire crackled, sending sparks dancing up the chimney. Shadows danced in the flickering light, taking on familiar shapes, whispering forgotten names. The old woman shivered, pulling the shawl tighter around her shoulders. The house may be gone, but some wounds, she knew, never truly heal. The story served as a chilling reminder that some places hold a darkness that whispers on the wind, a darkness that waits for the unsuspecting, a darkness that can claim you, body and soul, if you dare to venture too close. The woods may seem silent, but sometimes silence speaks volumes. Listen closely, and you might just hear the whispers. The old woman closed her eyes. The image of the house, its windows like vacant eyes, forever imprinted on the back of her eyelids. The house may be gone, but the memories, she knew, would haunt her forever. A chilling testament to the night she lost her friends and her innocence to the whispers in the woods.